welcome back. And if you've been waiting a little extra time, it's just that there were some technical difficulties online with the live streaming, but we hope you're all here and watching the second half of this class on the 5th chapter of the Svetashvatara Upanisad. We took the entire first half, which is a bit of a shorter first half, on this first sloka, and actually I find I'm not quite done with it even. There are things about wisdom and ignorance and the transcendent of both as a duality that we can look at in an interesting way. For instance, what Sri Ramakrishna calls the march of wisdom in 4 stages. I found this teaching in the Gospel of Ramakrishna, and he's talking about the pravartika, the sadhaka, the siddha, and the siddha of the siddha. So there are 4 levels of beings: the beginner, the practitioner, the master, and the master of the masters, like a past master. And that's an interesting teaching, a 4-fold teaching in Sanatana Dharma. There you see him at the top. Vivekananda even commented on it. He said, "There are stages of spiritual growth in mankind. Each one is necessary. This is the essential of religion. Know that every undertaking must pass through a lot of obstacles. Truth triumphs if only one pursues a peaceful course." So you'd have to get into that step with the seers around perseverance. You can't just try something and throw it away, but you have to enter into that first stage of being a beginner, a pravartika they call it. And you can see some of the forms that have to be observed. That is, you have to observe outer religious formalities. And of course, that is going on in the case of a beginning aspirant, sort of like following a daily routine of mild general practices. Regulate food and refines dietary habits. So you see a lot of people that are very concerned about their food when they begin to enter spiritual life. What can I eat? What should I not eat? Should I be vegetarian? Can I still eat meat? Basically, the best rule around food for the spiritual seeker is just to take sattvic food, as Krishna recommends in the Gita. You look in those last 2 chapters of the Gita and you'll see where he's talking about sattvic food as, that is, refined food, as he doesn't really specify vegetables or meat. So some of the more fundamental Vaishnavas and Krishna followers are claiming or stating that it needs to be a vegetarian diet, and that's what they follow, and that's good for them. And the Vedantists are usually Vedantists, but I found many Vedantists who necessarily don't have to refrain from meat. They usually just moderate it, and they have it once in a while. Whatever the case, it's not really a moral or immoral thing we're talking about here. It's what's good for your energy, basically, because your energy is being taken into consideration when you're a pravartika. When you're a beginner, and you feel heavy sometimes, your meditations are heavy, even your days are heavy, and you go to work and so forth, and other times you're feeling balanced, and sometimes you're just very restless all the time. So the 3 gunas are those that we were talking about earlier, and singing about, and chanted about at the very first chant this morning, about the Devatma Shakti being everywhere but covered by the 3 gunas. Svadgunayar Nagudam is the Sanskrit, but even though she's covered by these 3 gunas, she's nevertheless one and all-pervasive, indivisible, divine energy and everything. So your energy is what you're taking into consideration there when you want to get a better energy. So it starts with your food, and you feel like that makes you feel lighter when you eat a lighter food, and to maybe eat less and get more nutrients out of what you do eat. And of course, with the fast food movement today and eating on the run and so forth, a lot of these principles about food have been lost, and people are suffering because of them. Sometimes they're just relying on their own restlessness to propel them forward. And their acts then reflect negativities, and the karma comes back to them in a bad way. So the aspirant of pravartika is very concerned about that. Then starts to read religious books that strengthen their faith. In the trip from lower truth to higher truth, asato ma sadgamoya, tamaso ma jyotirgamoya. They died from birth to life to death, from the cradle to the grave. As my teacher used to say, there as a time there where spiritual books come forward, religious books come forward, and you have access to them and you begin to read them. I was talking about that last night at satsang, if you remember, that if you don't have any questions when you come to satsang, then you probably weren't reading earlier. All you need to do is read a few pages out of the Gospel or the Gita or an Upanishad, and it'll probably prompt a question in you. You just have to exercise the discipline. Remember earlier, it was said that affirmation isn't enough. Oh, I'm just going to go to satsang and see what happens, but I have to go there prompted, so that I can dig deep into the samskaras of my mind and neutralize the karmas that are there from past actions and past lifetimes. You have to have that kind of affirmative mental stance, if you will, that posture we're talking about of the mind, and have to keep it. It's just being said here by Swamiji. You pass through a lot of obstacles, but you have to keep this perseverance and going forward. That's, of course, could be said to be one of the main general advices in the Gospel. Go forward. It's a 2-word mantra based on that story of the woodcutter who kept going deeper in the woods and finding more and more treasure because some wise man told him, go forward, and disappeared. That was his guru giving him 2 words. And he found all sorts of blessings because he followed that advice. Finally, the Pravartika engages in actions that increase mindfulness. I was trying to bring that message across to the students of the college in Wyoming a few days back when I was there, that there's a kind of mindfulness that's going on, and of course it's going on around food, but it also has to be going on around your thoughts and actions. Since thought is father to the deed, then you want to think ahead, not just in a practical worldly way, but in your religious and spiritual way too. You want to almost dictate your day before you even step out the door. And of course that positive mind is going to be best to enter into any workplace, but there are things you can do that are almost prior to that, and will help you live each day in mindfulness, as they say. There are books by Buddhist monks and so forth, like Thich Nhat Hanh and so forth, out nowadays that are big on mindfulness. And the Buddhists are talking about that, and the Zen Buddhists too. So that's the beginner, the Pravartika. You can see the image in the middle is one of my students in prison drew that, and told me I could use it. So it's this figure of Divine Mother, if you were, with almost wings, and it's an emanation of pure intelligence coming off her, and beings are trying to get close to that center, or that core, which is the Devatma Shakti we heard Svetashvatara chanting about in the earlier chapters, that those rishis tried to make themselves aware of her by stripping the coverings off the gift, or removing the outer appearances of things and seeing through. Like a Sherlock Holmes of spiritual life, you have to, the game's afoot, then you have to get to the root of it and strip off all of these coverings, and you do that by certain clues that you find in nature. We'll get to that too as I show you this other chart. But the sadhaka would be the second stage, and that's a curve in your path that you must make. It's a turn, and that is after you've got basic holy company and you've gotten maybe mantra diksha and so forth, that now you have to take those blessings and put them into practice. Holy Mother used to say, there are 3 great blessings in life according to the scriptures and the tradition. First is a human body. You're better off with a human body than any other body on this plane, because you can realize God through a human body. And then you need a good teacher, and you need a desire for liberation. Those are the 3 great boons. But Holy Mother said that she saw people that had all 3 of them, and they didn't reach the goal in their life. And why was that? She said, because they didn't get their mind on their side. They didn't make their mind a part of the process. It wasn't a friend to them. It was always out of their control or antagonistic to what they were doing. So she added, as it were, a fourth great boon to this traditional system of three boons. And so the friendship or agreement, if you will, of your own mind, very important in this process. If you get a human body, a teacher, and a desire to be free, you can have a desire to be free. Many people have it, and then they lose it somewhere along the way, and they don't ever seek freedom. Maybe they get satisfied with the world, or possibly they get satisfied with just salvation. I was talking about that with some Christians in Wyoming last week. So it's not just salvation we want liberation. Absolute freedom makes you non-dependent on every other thing, and that's how you originally existed, in complete non-dependence on anything else. That's the description of your Atman, or your transcendental soul. So what does the sadhaka begin to think about, the practitioner? Conduct sadhana on an internal level. So that's where I said, not just be a fisherman on the river, but become fishers of men. Then you're going to have to go to the Garden of Gethsemane and meditate. That's inward. And so in any tradition, you're going to have that turn towards the inward. You want to, and when we get to this chart, it'll be rather obvious what that means in Samkhya and Vedanta, is that you actually start taking account of inner biology. And when I was speaking in biology class last week, I was wondering, how do I speak on Vedanta and biology in the Western college to the students? So I started talking about the cosmic principles, the inner biology of what makes us up, you see. Once my brother sent me a cartoon recently, it said, "You cannot trust atoms. They make up everything." So if you've gotten through with your inspection of particles that change at a billionth of a second, you have to approach a different particle. You have to get interested in your food particle, for instance, your energy particle. And it says this is just as much of an interest, or more so, than outer particles or outer space, in case of science or astronomy. You find out that there's not much out there, or maybe you might be looking for something that isn't there, because I remember Holy Mother once said, perhaps this is the only planet with any people on it. Perhaps there are no others in space. This is it. So whether or not that's true or not, it's certainly a practical stance, because we haven't found them. It's going to be very difficult to reach them if they are there, and we're spending billions of dollars and so forth on rockets sent into space for exploration of a kind of a heartless void, when there's the heart of humanity here that's suffering, you see. So a good point could be made, if they're so highfalutin intelligent, and let them contact us. Let's take care of our affairs here first and make us a better world here. So a different kind of particle you're becoming interested in, and then after the energy particle and food particles and so forth, you're getting interested in what I call the intelligent particle. Jnana matra is the Sanskrit. It's actually very, very powerful little fella, you see, and you get many of them together, then they can do anything. They can accomplish anything. You can accomplish evolution, they can also accomplish involution, and you just have to get them together into streams. And in fact, that's what's flowing off the word, is streams of intelligence, living intelligence, that as it trickles down gets further and further away from the source and becomes less and less pure, till you finally find the object, which is insentient and subject to decay and destruction and boredom and theft and all sorts of other things. So the object isn't really something you want to attach to again. You'll want to observe it and detach. But as you go back inward, then different kinds of levels of particles happen. Your ancestors are living at a very subtle particle level called heaven, and then beyond that there's the celestials, or the devas and devis we call them in India. They're living at a less gross, or much, much more subtle particle of level, more like the intelligent particle. So I could show you that chart, you could read my book, as they say, but nevertheless it's good to take account of these shifts of consciousness via vibration of particles, all the way up to the word, or Om. that is the soundless sound, or the unstruck sound, sometimes they call it. The Tantras say it vibrates spontaneously all the time. No one sets it into motion. It's not like taking a bell and going, bong, somebody took it and rang it, and then all the sound that was inherent in the bell came out. See, and then it dissipated, went back to the bell. At least that's what the sadhaka would think. He says, there's a source I'm going back to. It's not just all going out and diffusing like the sound of a bell, but if I follow the vibration of a bell and measure it as a recording artist or something, as an engineer, then I'm going to find out that it diffuses out in the air. So it's kind of leading me in the wrong direction. I really want to go to the source of the sound, which is in the bell. That's called the inherent essence of sound. So for that, you're going to have to move back inward. And true, not a lot of people think that way. They're attached to just the outer and how it decays and how it dies and so forth. And so their whole ideology is built upon external vibration, and it's beginning, middle, and end. But Krishna says in the Gita, there is no such thing as beginning, middles, and ends. There's just cycles. And Buddha came to prove that some several thousand years later, when he said, get out of the river of time and sit on the banks. Or find Kala, the god of time, and take him to court. See? You're always so cyclic all the time. There's got to be a way off of you, and that's what Buddha found, a way out of the rebirth with the ancestors all the time. He got up so high in his witness consciousness that he saw that time arced, see, that it was cycle. But if you look at it, it looks linear. It just goes on and on like a straight line into endless space. See, but if you get up high enough, and you can see it begin to arc, then you begin to suspect that time cycles and comes back around, and that these ages and these lifetimes have been going on and on forever, and will continue to go on and on forever, as long as consciousness wants to participate in them. But as soon as consciousness sees them and it wants to detach, like being on a merry-go-round too long, after you eat a lot of hot dogs, it's not a good thing, see, for you or for the people standing out nearby. See, so you want to not get sick on the merry-go-round of the world. Like Vivekananda said, the world is a gymnasium. Flex your muscles and get out. Flex your muscles and get out of it. So you don't want to stay there as a muscle-bound person who ages and then their muscles begin to weigh on them. And it's just old age, disease, decay, and death. Those are 4 of the 6 transformations. So it's not wise to get caught in that predicament. So the sadhaka wants to conduct sadhana on the internal level, begins to turn back in this involutionary process, intensifies spiritual practice over time. The beginner was just practicing religious formalities mostly, and shouldn't stop there. See, a lot of people kind of stop there, but when you hear the philosophy and you hear the truth and you find out what the seers have said about it, it's time to intensify your practice so that you realize these things inside of you, which is why I said, take the sloka up and read it once, make sure you understand it, and then put the book down and repeat it in your mind. What did the book just tell me? And then don't have to run back to it a dozen times over the next week to try and explain it to your friend or your child. But you would plant it in there first opportunity when it's fresh. So that's kind of like the sadhaka would do, is really taking things in internal life, you see. And it's just so important. Again, I can't say enough about it. 5 senses and mind must be then put in a stable position. What is a stable position? Well, the stablest position is no mind and transcendent senses. I mean, that's what you get when you hear Shankar sing. Om mano bhujya hamkara chitani naham nacha shrotra jiyuve nacha grana netre nacha vyoma bhumi na tejo na vayu chirananda rupaha shivoha Shivoham. Om. So he says, Om Mano Buddha Hamkara. I'm not Mano mind, I'm not Buddha intelligence, I'm not a Hamkara ego. Just right away, I'm not the mind. And I'm not Natya Shrotra Juve, Natya Grana Netri. Those are, of course, the knowledge senses, 2 of the 5 knowledge senses. So I'm not those. I'm not seeing, tasting, hearing, touching, and smelling. And, if you took those away from people, most people would be frantic, Their desires unfulfilled, all these things they wanted to do, their senses are gone, they can't do them, right? So they're totally dependent on the senses. And that's not a very balanced condition, you see, as we're saying here. 5 senses and mind must be in a stable position. So they must be stable, dependent upon the Atman. Natya Vyoma Bhumir, Nate Jonavaya. Those are, of course, 2 of the Pancha Mahabhutas, or the 5 elements. Tejas is fire, and Vyoma and so forth. So you have air, earth, fire, water, and ether. And if the senses are dependent on them, and then the mind and senses get into cahoots. The senses and elements get into cahoots and preempt the mind out of the picture, you see. Then the mind's not in control. It's like a chariot with the 5 horses all going in a different direction, they say. So Shankara is singing a non-dual stotram here about nirvana, which is the highest state of no mind. So that's what the sadhaka wants. That's why he's so interested in stabilizing these principles. Now, also studies the revealed scriptures with a guru. You can read them first, you should read them. Most of us do read them without a teacher first. That's good because it shows that we're interested even before the guru comes along. But as we read them, we've probably already made the inner request for a teacher to come into our lives. So that teacher is on the way. And the teacher and the disciple or the apostle are going to meet, you see. So as best as the aspirant, the sadhaka, can prepare themselves before that moment, the more impact and the more good will come out of it. Nowadays, we're not really prepared when our guru shows up. So it has to be a lot of backtracking, You have to tell us, oh, what are you doing that for? You shouldn't be doing that. Give that up. Take to that. That shouldn't necessarily have been necessary. Like somebody was asking me, one of the students at the Wyoming College last week, what do you do to prepare for spiritual life? And I said, in my tradition, in the old days, you had to have discrimination between the real and the unreal, detachment from the unreal, inner peace, self-control, contentment, forbearance, faith, an ability to meditate, and a desire for freedom before you met your guru. See? Because ideally is that when those 2 souls meet, hi, tatvamasi, thank you, bye. See? That was it in the old days. You got a mantra or a statement from your guru. Sri Aurobindo, for instance, on a train, in his 20s, finished his English degree, top honors in England, going back to India. When he's in India, he meets, because he grew up in the West, he went back to India later. It's very interesting. Meets Bhaskar Lele. Bhaskar Lele looks at him and says, you look like a fine young man. Talks with him about an hour. Bhaskar Lele says, did you ever get a mantra initiated? Sri Aurobindo says, no. He said, well, here, let me initiate you. And that's when he met his guru for about a couple hours on a train, and they never met again. You see? So it's like a reenactment of the old times when the soul knew its way, and it was in trouble here. So in trouble with the 5 elements, the 5 senses, and the errant mind. See, that's na mano na buddha hamkara. It thinks it is the mind, ego, and intelligence, but it's not. So it's learning everything from the standpoint, the wrong mental posture of I am the mind, intellect, and hamkara, ego. So it's in problems already, see. So when it comes into life in the old days, it's like all of this knowledge is paid forward. oh, here I am in the realm of the five elements, I must be careful. I must practice. So it's probably already a sadhaka when it's born. I mean, Krishna talks about it in the Gita, right? They pick up the thread of their yoga from a previous lifetime. It's right there in the Gita. And then they're born in the house of the pure and the pious. And maybe they get born in the house of yogis and yoginis. A verse like that is very rare to attain, Arjuna, he tells him. So, and how much more so in this day and age? How many of us were born to yogis and yoginis? See? How many of us are born to pure and pious, even? See? How many of us are born to parents that teach us the Dharma? We're lucky if we got taught morality, because some people didn't. In an errant culture that's backwards like that. So I'm just saying, as they say, if you look way back, the qualifications were very stringent, very strict, and you had to have them or the guru wouldn't look at you. Oh, you're not quite ready yet, You have scattered mind, or you have restless mind, or you have dull mind, or you have a mind that's sometimes together and sometimes isn't. So, go back to the world and get that together. Then come back to me and I'll give you the mantra, because when you get the mantra or the Mahavakya, you'll get enlightenment like that. It won't take you 1 year, what to speak of one lifetime. And that's why Vivekananda says, like Swami Vivekananda says in the Raja Yoga book right in the very outset, you ought to be able to become a yogi in
6 months.
6 months. That's a quote from Vivekananda in this day and age, in the late 1800s. You ought to be able to become a yogi or a yogini in 6 months. So if everything is set up like that, that's what will happen. So then why the sadhaka stage is so important. I mean, most of us in America haven't even arrived at it yet. Really. We're mostly here. Rituals, rites, food, reading some books, isn't it? So here's a stiff graph for you, Studies in the revealed scriptures with the guru, then prays inwardly in a state of intrinsic connection. You don't pray outwardly to some god in the sky. You pray inwardly in the spirit of inward connection. In other words, there is never a time when you become separate from God. You are always one with God. You just don't know it in this stage yet. In fact, what about before this stage kicks in, you see? When people who are mindless, we talk about mindfulness, right? He's trying to, what about before mindfulness came to you and you were mindless? You were like that worldly soul we just saw in the last chart. That's what your thinking process was all skewed, you see. So what to speak of that wretched soul? When you come to this place, you're beginning to get the idea, but you must forge on. Let's look at what forging on means. The Siddha comes next. It's an interesting word in Sanskrit. Don't worry about the other 3 or 4 meanings, like ganja and occult powers. Siddha just means perfection. That's the best meaning for Siddha in Sanskrit. So, adjusts practice based upon the vision of God. Oh, so the Siddha has become perfected, has already had the vision of God, that the sadhaka was trying to get by praying inward, right? So this is a earmarking, you see, of a master. And you haven't even met the past master yet. See, it's like the Dalai Lama, 14, conscious lifetimes and so forth. I was bringing that up again in the college in Wyoming. It's like you can't walk up to Dalai Lama and say, I don't believe in reincarnation. He's not going to like that. Well, I take exception to that, young man. I've been reincarnated consciously 14 times. And I can tell you about my previous lifetimes and so forth and so on. So you're not going to find a very open road for that kind of ignorance coming up to a soul like that. So they've had masterful lifetimes before. My way of putting that is that you have to have a conscious death before you can have your first conscious lifetime. So you should then be preparing right now. When you sit on your pillow in meditation, the Zen Buddhists say, you sit in zazen, maybe 6-8 hours a day. I've done this. And then you go in for counsel with your Roshi, and the first thing he asks is, have you died on your pillow yet? See, have you died on your zafu? And you wonder what he's saying, you see. So you haven't had that experience yet where the ego died. Mano buddha hamkara, chittani naham, thought, intellect, ego, and mind died on you. And then you found out that you were still alive, you see. You still existed when the mind complex was gone. There's consciousness for you. So that's having a vision of God. I think it's not just a burning bush, or seeing Christ along the road to Damascus in some vision that he projected towards you. Your vision of God is truth. You've seen your own nature. Thou shalt know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So, I was saying that in the college in Wyoming last week, and I said, who said that? And actually no one knew who said that. I said some of 5 or 6 of Christ's best sayings out of the Bible, and they didn't know what I was talking about. So again, we started out saying, religion is false. Maybe they haven't heard those teachings because religion in the Midwest has gotten so fundamentalist that nobody wants to go to it anymore, see. So I was a little surprised that they didn't know teachings of the Bible. I thought, well, here's a way I can connect with them, All of a sudden I'm left in a lurch, having to speak about inner biology and the Parliament of Religions in 1893 at the history class. But, whatever the case may be, they're fertile ground. And I thought back on myself and how unindoctrinated I was at 19 when I founded Vedanta. I wasn't messed with religiously in my life. So, there is something to be said for, leaving the ground fallow for a while and let the fertilizer spread and, the soil get richer. And then when somebody comes along and gives you the teaching, you're ready and ripe for it. Better if the Dharma was given to you and you have it and you become a master, because then you'll never lose it like this soul did. He wouldn't be seeking it if he had have always known it. Obviously, he hasn't known it in a recent lifetime, so he has to re-seek it, which is what I was telling them sitting at their desks. Here you are trying in sociology and you're trying to get a degree, and how do you know you don't know all of this, everything, already? You're thinking that you're learning it new out of books, you see. But that's why you read something and commit it to memory, and then when it becomes familiar to you inside your own head, you say, oh, I know this, isn't it? Don't we all say, oh, I know that? And it only takes the first mention of it for us to say, yes, I know that. See? So it proves that all knowledge is within you. How did Vivekananda put it? Education is the manifestation of knowledge already within you. Education is the manifestation of knowledge already in mankind. Religion is the expression of God already in mankind. Beautiful, right? So it's nothing new to you. There's nothing new under the sun, Ecclesiastes said. Everything that has been will be again. Everything that has been done will be done again. There's nothing new under the sun. That's Ecclesiastes 1:7, I think. So this is, even in Christendom you'll find out that this idea that everything has been cycling forever and that you're just re-meeting it. You see, all inventions are reinventions. All concepts are reconcepts. So there is this one stationary substance, if you will, called consciousness that holds it all for all times. And you're just tapping into it, you see. If you've moved away from your center, then you're tapping back into the source of it. And it's a mental perspective that's very valuable to take on. You must entertain it in your mind. Enough entertainment at the movie house, you see. You must entertain this inner life now and start to say, all knowledge may be in there already. See. If I adopt that position, how much quicker is that knowledge going to come to the surface than if I don't know it and I start pursuing it outside and maybe never reach it at the end of my life and have to come back with the same attitude again. Oh, I have to reach it this lifetime, you see. So again, it's just a much more enlightened way of moving forward. All right, so the sadhaka keeps discipline handy but lives in realization. So this is why you see an illumined soul having the highest experience, but also still disciplining themselves, because they're doing it for the sake of others watching. Shankara said that. Although enlightenment has come and I've had samadhi, I keep doing disciplines so that everyone else will know they should do disciplines. Like they say, Sri Ramakrishna, oh, he must not have been a perfect soul because he had 4 teachers. He had Totapari, he had Bhairavi Brahmani, he had the Muslim teacher in Govinda Rai in the Kali temple, in the Muslim quarter of the temple. So he must not have been perfect, right? No, wrong. He took teachers to show us that we needed to take teachers. And if you read about his teachers, they all got further enlightened from him. His teachers were siddhas, right? But they didn't know it, that they were in the presence of a siddha, a master of masters, see. So that puts things in good perspective on the level of an avatar like Ramakrishna. In the college in Wyoming last week, I was saying, avatar this, avatar that, and I wasn't getting much response, I said, did any of you see the movie Avatar? So I guess they hadn't. But I said, that's one of the Sanskrit words that's made its way into English language, and it's been used, in the colonizing planets and war and violence and all of that, and the people that lived on the other worlds and sort of science fiction. But avatar in Sanskrit means this fully illumined soul that comes from every 500 years or every age to remind us of this Dharma. See? So none of us would be here in this room if Sri Ramakrishna hadn't appeared in 1836, taken his birth, and had then gathered Sri Sharda Devi, Swami Vivekananda, Swami Brahmananda, Brahmanandam Shivam Shantam Premarupam Niranjanam Yogi Shamadbhutam Nityam Akondadvaita Lekshanam. All the 16 disciples came together around him, just like the 12 apostles of Christ and the Noble Eight of Buddha. It all came there around him to teach us. And at least 5 or 6 of them came to the U.S., several of them here to California. So all of that has been a foundation of people who did sadhana and met a master, and maybe even a master of a master in their case, and then passed it on to us. Pass it on. If the world is a flaming house on fire, then you've got to get a bucket brigade together and pass it on, right? You get water from the source, you pass it down the line, and you put out the barn on fire. So that's a good metaphor for getting water from the source of spirituality and passing it on to everyone and helping them free themselves. You can't free them, but you can help them free themselves. Sort of the idea there. Now, what else is there about the Siddha? Sublimates desires and rises to higher states. I could show you the 10 fair lands of Buddhism. They're called the 10 bhumis. Is it Dasa Bhumika, it's called, 10 pure lands of Buddhism. So if you get a conscious death and a conscious life, you're a bodhisattva, right? But that's the first of 10 levels of bodhisattvahood. You still have 9 other levels that you can attain. So, and all the Buddhas are watching you, and if you try to get into the next land, they'll say, you're not ready yet, you see. So there's this constant qualification and expansion that's going on of your enlightened state back until you're a siddha of a siddha, until you're a living Buddha. See? So you're always having to grow in that way, so to speak, as they say. So sublimate the desires and rises to higher states. Then transmit wisdom of the scriptures to others. That's one of the 4 criterion of a teacher, right, in Vedanta, is you must be able to transmit the essence of the teachings to others. Stotra. along with Brahmavid and Kamahata and Avrijana. These are the 4 qualifications of a teacher. I found my teacher not just talking about Vedanta, but transmitting wisdom into his devotees. So I took refuge at his feet and got the transmission. See, opened up and received it. See, no qualms. So that's important. And then meditates in the state of one-pointed awareness. So the Siddha has these earmarkings, as you will. And then what could you say about the Siddha of the Siddha? It's an incomparable state. The 4th level there of awakening by stages is far beyond mere awakening. This soul abides in the non-dual state of Brahman, has transformed spirituality into bliss, is desireless and lives for the good of others, emanates the essence of enlightenment naturally, and meditates naturally with eyes open and closed. Of course, borrowing that from Holy Mother, Sri Sharda Devi, Sri Ramakrishna's wife, and she said, God exists when eyes are closed, but does he cease to exist when they're open? See, so you have to, this master knows that God is both inside and outside. This person thinks, God is inside and is trying to get away from just the outside. This person is beginning, this level of aspirant is beginning to know that God exists inwardly only and is seeking that. And this person finds God inwardly only. But this being is seeing God in all places at all times, inwardly and outwardly. It's a strange alchemy that happens to the soul. Christ called it, if thine eye be single, you shall know the truth. Which I said many times in class at the Wyoming College last week, and nobody recognized the saying. Nobody. They were like blank faces looking at me. In Christendom. See? If thine eye be single, you shall know the truth. Buddha said, I have the Dharma eye within me. Krishna says, you must open Jnana Chakshu, Arjuna, the wisdom eye. The Taoists say it's the white, Essenes, the Christian Essenes, the early Christians. It's the white dove ascending. You see, it opens up like in the third eye. It's the white dove ascending. Or the Taoists say it's the back door to divinity. See, nobody sees it. It's the pillar of light. So there's different references to the third eye, or to the opening of higher wisdom in different religious traditions. Final quote at the bottom by Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. The Pravartika is a beginner. He puts marks on his head and body, wears a rosary around his neck, and strictly follows outer observances. The Sadhaka is more advanced. He has lost his penchant for outer show. He longs for the realization of God and thus prays for him inside earnestly. The Siddha has firm conviction that God exists since he has seen him. And the Siddha of the Siddha, he has not only seen God, but has talked to him intimately. That's why we saw Sri Ramakrishna speaking to Divine Mother all the time. And people were around, and who is he talking to? It's like, oh Mother, why have you brought me here? Who are these people? He'd just come out of samadhi, and he had been visiting God, as it were, inside his own self. Because this Upanishad, remember the earlier sloka, some of you have it memorized. Om adihi sa sam yoga namitta hetu. Kalas trikalada kalopi dristaha. Tam vishvarupam bhavabhuta midyam. Remember that? Kalas devam swachithastam upasya purvam means meditate upon the Lord as thine own self, seated in your heart. Brilliant again, it's beautiful. Meditate upon the Lord as thine own self, not as something else outside, it's the inside. Who appears to you as the universe, but who is the ultimate source of all living beings. So the universe can be allowed, you can allow it. This is the outer manifestation of God, nature and so forth. So he appears to you as the universe, but he's really the ultimate source of everything here. See? Now, perceive that one as the ultimate cause of the relationship between matter and spirit. See, last night at satsang I took the half oil, half water cylinder and shook it, you see, and watched the oil and water separate. So there's a relationship between matter and spirit, but they don't mix, not ultimately. They're two different things. Matter is non-essence, and consciousness is essence. Isn't that what we were just saying? Ignorance leads to perishable, wisdom leads to immortality. Entirely different from these is that one, the imperishable, infinite, secret, supreme Brahman. So it's going to be beyond these, any kind of duality you might want to conjure up or that the mind can conjure up. There's a transcendent reality doing the conjuring, see, overseeing the conjuring. It's like Sri Ramakrishna used to say, the magician, does fantastic things in front of the audience. And they all believe that, like he ties lots of knots in a rope, right? And he shakes it, and all the knots disappear. And he calls someone up from the audience, here, you do it. Ties knots in a knot. The guy tries to shake it and tie it, but just makes the knots tighter, right? So they think, what a magic trick. But at home, the kids and the wife ask the magician how he does that trick, and he shows them how it's all sleight of hand. And so they know that it's all show. The audience goes away thinking, oh, what a marvelous magician. He can do anything, you see. But it means your own people, that is, Sri Ramakrishna's own disciples, knew him, you see, and everything. They knew how the Divine Mother conjured up this universe. And all they need to do is shake it a few times and it goes away. The knots go away, you see. So you must become a friend of the magician, she says. See, come to know the magician, and you'll know his tricks. Otherwise, not likely you're going to go away with the wrong impression. So the Siddha of the Siddha, a wonderful study amidst this 4 levels or awakenings by stages. A good teaching from the Gospel out of Sri Ramakrishna. This is like the 4th newest chart in my 250 chart collection now. I just barely put it together. I thought San Francisco should see it. Now let's look here in the remaining time, which is only about 20 minutes, at Mother India's revealed scriptures. It says here, that one alone presides over nature in all aspects and controls every form and every cause of production. He witnesses the birth of the firstborn of golden color and nourishes him with wisdom. So look into Swami Chaggisananda's notes, and you'll find the firstborn of golden color refers to Hiranyagarbha, or the cosmic soul who projects the universe. So I started off the chants today, Om Hiranmaye Pari Koshe Virajan Brahmanishkalam. So referring to Hiranmaye or Hiranyagarbha really means the cosmic egg of golden color. So it's like this source of everything, out of which everything came. It's rather like the word in that particular time in India, that particular phase of time. Or it could be called Lord Brahma, or it could be called Pradhana, or it could be called unmanifested Prakriti, or Lord Brahma, the Trinity, which we just love to sing to every time we mention it, right? Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurur Eva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, that's this Hiranyagarbha, or this cosmic egg of golden color. That's right here, you see. At this chart, if we want to find out how the scriptures of Mother India remained eternal even after coming to earth and didn't get distorted like so many other scriptures in different traditions got so distorted, then we have to know upon what axis they were balanced, upon what substratum they were, hard to say, created, how they were incepted or projected. Projected is the word used here. So this ultimate truth that's contained in the revealed scriptures of India finds its way down. This is actually an image that we put together for the cover of Footfalls of the Indian Rishis, which is a book of all my charts, which is about now 3/4 done. I'm working on it. Those of you who are watching, who have been writing me and saying, when's that book coming out? It's here in a year or so. But this is sort of a semblance of the cover, where you've got the Himalayas and you've got these footprints coming down out of the ethers, which is really not out of the sky at all, it's out of the inner sky. And this is what happens. In the inner sky of your intelligence, you have these Mahat Buddhi Ahamkara Manas Chitta, or cosmic intelligence. And it carries with it all the wisdom of the scriptures. And it's going to trickle down. You see, it comes down to cosmic mind, which is Mahat, comes down to intellect, ego, mind, and thought, which is Buddhi Ahamkara Manas Chitta. And there's a line, you see. And then it's going to manifest itself in the tanmatras. Audibility, visibility, flavor, odor, and tangibility, you see. Then into hearing, feeling, seeing, tasting, smelling. Then into speaking, handling, locomotion, procreating, excreting. Then into ether, air, fire, water, and earth. Right on down to the very elements of earth marches this wisdom. So if you're looking here at everything, it's just your wisdom. See? That's how to look at it. Like I told you, was it today or yesterday, last night at satsang, you're sitting in the mind right now. See? Verily, you're sitting right in your own mind. This is all your own mind made manifest, objects, worlds. It's not somehow distinct or different from you, like you think. That's how Maya has made it seem, but it's actually your own projection. So it wasn't created just by nature, because nature couldn't do it alone. You had to bring in intelligence into the picture, and this is what science is not accounting for. Consciousness, intelligence. It all starts out with food, and food turns into sperm, and it's given into the ovum, and then the fetus comes, and then the body comes out, and then it grows, and then develops a brain, and then death. And that's it, right? That's called the material cause in my tradition. But there are at least 7 other causes inside that the material cause is based upon. That's this involution process. So if you find yourself on earth, you start meditating on these, you find out that water goes with excreting, earth goes with excreting, water with procreating, fire with locomotion, air with handling, ether with speaking, and that earth and excreting go with smelling, that water and procreating go with tasting, that fire and locomotion go with seeing, and so forth and so on, and you're connecting sets of 5s. You have 5 fingers in your hand, you have 5 toes on your feet, you have 5 senses, you have 5 senses in dream tonight, you have a 5-fold mind, if you count cosmic mind in, see 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is all called the quintuplication process. And it's a beautiful, beautiful philosophy given to us by ancient India, that they all knew. It's mentioned in the Taittiriya Upanisad that we studied in Portland, just finished, and it's all based upon the fact that each of these 5s came out of the last 5, and those 10 came out of this 5, and then so forth. And this is called involution. This is going back to the kingdoms of heaven within you. See, people are sort of mistaken. They're thinking, oh, where are they? Let's get a telescope and look out there. Where are the kingdoms of heaven? But he said they're within you. He didn't say outside of you. So you're looking in all the wrong places for your source. Sri Ramakrishna said the musk deer runs around the forest looking for that beautiful scent on the winds. See? Do you get it? The musk deer runs around looking for that beautiful scent on the winds. Where does musk come from? The navel of the deer. So that scent is already inside of it, and it's looking outward for it. You see? So the kingdoms of heaven are within you, not outside. And you're smelling, is the musk is like pleasure with the objects, right? And you're going looking for them, thinking it will fulfill you sometime, but you're going to have to stop running around the forest and withdraw and find out that that very scent is inside of you. That's intelligence. This is what intelligence smells like. See, somebody asked a scientist recently, what does ether smell like? He said, it's sort of like burning metal. So an odd thought, but basically, what does intelligence smell like? You see, it smells like that beautiful musk that's inside of you, that fragrance of mind, that perfume of the mind. I mean, you can actually catch that as a physical sense sometimes. If you're very high in thought, you catch a beautiful aroma, it's coming off your mind. So thought and higher intelligence has a kind of subtle fragrance to it. That's called a tanmatra right here. Flavor, see, or odor. See, those are subtle elements. These are the gross elements down here, and the gross ones came out of the subtle ones. Audibility gives rise to ether, tangibility to air, visibility, of course, to fire. So it's not, it looks different coming down, doesn't it? Evolution. And we get lost in evolution, but if we don't have an involution to follow, then we don't know where the sources of these things are, and we get lost, we get confused. So Vedanta, Lord Kapila of the Samkhya system, Lord Patanjali of the yoga system wants to introduce these to you if you don't know about them, because they're part of your knowledge base somewhere back there. You might be hearing them now for the first time in this lifetime, and making a sudden connection to them and thinking, oh, maybe everything is, maybe the kingdoms of heaven are within me after all. It's not just a cryptic saying of Jesus. And now I can actually prove it to myself by connecting the dots, meditating on them, following it inside, like I said, in an hour. See, you memorize them like you'd memorize a sloka, put the book down. In the same way, you have to put the book down and the words down and everything once you know them, and then actually do the movement through your own consciousness back to its source. We've been calling this return to the source and all sorts of other things, enlightenment, illumination, self-realization. But there's a path that leads to it inwardly. In fact, there's several. Vivekananda said, if you can't do this by wisdom, then you do it by devotion. And if those two aren't readily available to you, you can do it by meditation. Action, I don't know. Unless you put some of the other yogas to help it, action's not going to be very effective in getting you inside, obviously, right? We're finding that out if we're not finding out anything else, that action alone is leading to externalized consciousness. And it's far from home then. So anything above that is the cosmic mind and cosmic intelligence. So these are footprints. You see the numbers on the footprints, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In fives, everything marches down onto earth. So when you're reading the revealed scriptures of India, and this is a teaching pertinent to Vedanta and yoga and so forth, when you're reading the revealed scriptures of India, you're reading the cosmic mind on earth. But Svetashvatara is here with you right now when you read this. He's realized his eternal, all-pervasive consciousness, and you're just reading his book. When you're reading his book, you're reading his consciousness. So there's nothing distant or different from you. Everything is right here, right now. Isn't that what you hear? The eternal moment is right here, right now. I have to live in the moment. Right? This is what it means, in Jnana Yoga at least, is what that saying means. And you should, if you take on a reverent attitude and you pick this up reverently, see, don't eat food and, or read it, in strange places. But when I was 19 and 20, I picked this up and I sat like this and I read the scriptures. And I kept them separate from every other aspect of my life. You don't mix spirituality with the world, because they don't mix well. Later on, maybe you can hold two ideals, but right now you need to know this and know this alone. And you need to put everything else behind me. That's what Jesus meant. Get thee behind me. It wasn't just a horned devil, the red body and a pitchfork and a forked tail he was talking about, you see. It was everything that distracts me from this, the truth. Thou shalt know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. See? So there's a version of that in Christendom with the Bible, but look at how India doesn't have just one book. I mean, in the 5 minutes remaining, 108 Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, the Brahma Sutras, those are Shruti. Those are to be heard. You must not miss those. That's called Prasthanatrayam, the 3 great landmarks of scriptural history. Srimad Devi Bhagavatam and the Chandi, the 2 mother scriptures, the only time, the only place, the only occurrence that Divine Mother has ever happened in the world is in these 2 scriptures. She's got her own scriptures. A little bit of Mother Mary and Christianity, Mother Tara and Buddhism. In fact, Prajnaparamita is really a mother scripture in Buddhism. But as far as India is concerned, the Srimad Devi Bhagavatam and the Chandi are mother scriptures, and those are recommended. Non-dual scriptures, Ashtavakra Samhita, Avadhuta Gita, Adhyatma Ramayana, Gaudapadas Karika, which is really a commentary on the Upanishad. Those are those are non-dual. So they're stripped of all extraneous teachings. There's really not much duality or qualified non-dualism. They're all pretty much non-dual. In fact, you first read them, you go, what's he saying? Because they're so terse and stripped of all extraneous things and to the point. In fact, I quoted a sloka out of that in the first half when I said, renounce the world, then renounce renunciation, then renounce renunciation and non-renunciation, then renounce the poison of renunciation and non-renunciation. So all of these are stages, and you want to go to this ultimate reality and have it revealed to you. There you see on the far left the 4 Vedas, the 18 Puranas, the 64 Tantras, the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, Srimad Bhagavatam, Uddhava Gita, Narada's Bhakti Sutras, Sandilya's Bhakti Sutras, the Code of Manu. Pretty much giving you a list here of what's on my shelf at home, since I started gathering them when I was 19, 20. There's more, but these are the key ones, you might say, the ones that are, actually put it this way, put into English. In fact, I don't think you could probably find all of the 64 Tantras in English anywhere right now. Then in the middle, Tattva Samasa Sutras. That's the only scripture out of Samkhya Yoga, this system, that we have left. Because it's so ancient, they've been lost. So we don't even know if that was even written by Kapila. It might have been written by his devotee. Then there's Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. We're studying that. We're in lesson 99. You just got an email if you've been following that for the last years with me. You can start it at lesson 1 if you want, if you just email me. But we've been going through Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, and we'll turn that into a book after we finish the lessons. Jivan Mukti Viveka, probably not for the householders, more for the monks. Nonetheless, there are some great teachings come out of that scripture. Panchadasi, that's a Vedantic scripture that's very Advaitic. Dhammapada, I put that in there because it's Buddha's scripture, but it's Hinayana Buddhism. It's in the period where Buddha lived or had just passed. They gathered all the sayings of Buddha together, so it's not, from Tibet or Japan or China. It was actually Indian Buddhism. So the Dhammapada has to be counted as one of the great Indian scriptures because Buddha was a Hindu man. Yoga Vashishta, we've done a version of that already. Then all of Shankara's scriptures. Shankara is such a great soul in India that these are just some of them. There's actually a few more. But Viveka Chudamani, Aparakshana Bhuti, Drigdrishya Viveka, Atma Bodha, Tattva Bodha, Vedanta Keshari, Prapancha Sara, Atma Anatma Viveka, Moha Mudgara, and Vakya Vritti are all there to study, and a few more of Shankara's scriptures. Very non-dual and very rich with wisdom. And then, of course, modern age, I would say Gospel of Ramakrishna and the complete works of Swami Vivekananda are must-reads for people interested in Vedanta and or Divine Mother of the Universe and her whole system of wisdom and expression. All expression coming down, you see. So, only thing other to say is this quote maybe at the end. I have never lost faith in a benign providence, nor am I ever going to lose it. My faith in the true religion and the revealed scriptures is unshaken. Vivekananda loved India and loved its scriptures and loved its seers, of which there was a multitude coming every age, all the time. So I think we've run out of time here, but we were able to accomplish only one sutra. Maybe we'll get to more tomorrow. But we did take 3 or 4 profound charts that really unwrapped the sutra the way I like to. If you come to SRV and you want to study a scripture, you might take 3-4 years to get through it. But you should end that study and leave there with a lot of notes and a lot of things to contemplate on in your mind, which again is that message. Put it all in the mind, away from books and temples, and then meditate on it and realize that it is within you, and you're only being reminded of it in class. Here we'll end then with a chant. Om Sato Ma Sadgamoya Tamaso Ma Joytir Gamoya Mrichor Ma Amritam Gamaya Abira Mayedi Rudrayate Dakshinamukam Tenamam Pahinicham Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from lower knowledge to higher knowledge. Lead us from the unreal to the real. And lead us from the illusion of death to eternal life. Reach us through and through, O Lord and Mother of the universe, with thy sweet and benign presence. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.